You're listening to the Labor Notes podcast, our weekly show on rank and file news and organizing tactics. I'm Natascha Uhlmann, a staff writer at Labor Notes.
And I'm Danielle Smith, an organizer at Labor Notes. As ICE agents spread terror across the country, more of us are having conversations about immigration with our coworkers. For many people, these conversations are rooted in the very real possibility that ICE could show up to your workplace. We've reported on this recently at Labor Notes. Our coworker, Luis Feliz Leon, who has been interviewing workers in Minneapolis, quoted a steward in ATU Local 1005, which represents transit workers in Minnesota, talking about ICE agents getting on buses and, quote, knocking down doors and, quote, doing whatever they can to haul people off, end quote.
And our former coworker Barbara also noted how ICE agents are showing up at schools or even intercepting students on the way to school, creating terror and uncertainty for students and teachers. Healthcare, food service, building trades, and hotel workers, along with many others, are also facing the threat of immigration raids while at work. While these conversations around immigration are essential to have, it can still be hard to broach a subject at work that for some can be pretty loaded. But there are strategies that can help make these conversations more productive, as I wrote recently in my piece, How to Debunk Anti-Immigrant Myths at Work. We'll link that in our episode description.
And today, we actually have on the pod two of the workers that Natascha interviewed in that piece, Francisco Paco Arago, who is a journeyman and wireman and member of IBEW Local 11, and Chris Anders, a steward with electrical workers IBEW Local 666 in Virginia. Paco is a member of the Latin American Electrical Workers Alliance, or LIOA, a new caucus formed in 2025, which Natascha and our coworker Keith Brower-Brown have previously reported on. LIOA is working on revitalizing Latino member organizing in the union. Chris and Paco are both also members of the Caucus of Rank and File Electrical Workers, or CREW, which is a new member caucus that launched in September, as our coworker Keith reported at the time. In our description for this episode, we've included details and added links to learn more and to follow along on social media. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
First, to set the stage, I'd love to hear a little bit about your organizing, particularly around bringing immigrant workers into the union, and not just as members on paper, but as empowered members who can fully participate in the life of the union. What are you fighting for, and how's it been going? Chris, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I can start off a little bit. Well, when I became a steward, first thing I was going around doing was, learning everyone's name. I'm on the job with 250 people, and I hadn't really been in this position before. I just topped out as a journeyman wireman, and I need to meet our members and find out who was sworn in yet or not. We had a big boom in the industry recently. And a lot of new people were recently organized in from non-union, people who had traveled over to Virginia for our work. And I went around seeing who was a member of Local 666, sworn in, dues paying member. And I started getting people. I found a lot lacking in terms of trying to get these resources into people's hands, not from anyone's fault. We had not been expecting this boom, and a lot of the simple ways to get that to people out in the field were not there yet. So, just having the stuff all organized onto our job site for people to swear in, go through the whole process, know their benefits, all that came about. So first thing was just getting people sworn in. We're in the right to work state. Having that pitch is a bit, it's a double-edged sword because, it's hard to sell in a right to work state to get a good union density going. But the people that do swear in, who are members, dues paying members, are committed to it. They actually believe in it. They don't have to be doing that to access our work. So you have that conversation with them, and they understand that this is a way to advance the conditions, advance the pay for each and every one of us.
So I'm one of the co-founders of an organization within the IBEW called the Latin American Electrical Workers Alliance. And just like most clubs, things are born out of necessity or out of a reaction to being ignored or just the times call for it. So, we started this club about 8 years ago in Los Angeles. And in the last 12 months, we've gotten chapters and we've grown across the country, um, specifically focusing on language equity, which is something that Chris's local is very advanced in, and also immigrants advocacy, which is a huge deal, and also participating in the community in the fight against fascism. Right, so organizing our members, educating our members to get involved. This club that we started. Cultural empowerment is a huge thing, especially in a country or an organization that kind of suppresses it. And although we're part of a great organization, assimilation into electricity is great, right? We all have the same training nationally, but regionally, our locals look very different. I'm in LA, Chris is in Richmond, Virginia. You could imagine these are almost two different countries on different levels, right? The food, the culture, the geography, the history. So some of our locals are very inactive, and sometimes culture is a way to spark people getting involved, especially today, right now, while culture is under attack. This is a culture war that's happening. It's a class war, but people are being demonized just for being who they are. And that's the history of this country, right? Nobody here is new to that. This is something we've always experienced in America, except it's on steroids right now. And labor should play a role in fighting this. And if our leadership isn't taking on that role or they don't see the importance of it because they're really focused on the business aspect of the union, which is an oxymoron, but if they're focused on the business aspect of the union, falling through the cracks is some of this stuff. So we're focusing on the union does belong to the workers, and we should respond accordingly if we feel like our community is under attack. And that's essentially the organizing that we're focusing on right now.
That's really great. I wonder, could you guys both say a little bit more what it looks like to actually do this work on the ground of talking about immigration in the workplace? Like, what makes conversations with coworkers effective and what makes a conversation maybe less productive? Paco, do you want to go first?
Sure. So, recently I saw this World War II quote, and it was a Japanese American soldier. And the quote was, I had to fight like hell to fight for my country. And sometimes we spend a lot of our energy fighting within our union to win the hearts and minds of our coworkers to even get involved in the struggle. That's the first step, right? Building a solid base of workers that are willing to stand up and fight, because our administrations aren't always friendly to rank and file efforts. Us at the bottom going to meetings, making motions, using the union's rules to create progressive change within the union. And some of those conversations are they're hard. They're hard because in our trade we have a thing which I like to call wage entitlement. We're not the hungriest of the workers, right? We make a good wage. We have a good benefits package. So the struggle isn't really the topic. Hey, we're hungry. We need to eat, like the janitors union, right? Where there's more urgency on that issue. So for us, we talk more about power, about building power as a union so we could control the negotiating table. And for example, specifically, if you have an invisible barrier for letting immigrants into your union, which our union did for a long time, or specifically immigrants of color, let me say that, as far as language barriers, then the conversation with our coworkers is really about how to build power and dominate at the negotiating table so we get great contracts. And if we're not letting certain people in, they're still doing the electrical work. They just happen to be our competition. They're being exploited. Um, their wage package is less than ours, so the competitor is able to outbid us on projects, and we lose. So sometimes the conversations with the coworkers are about not specifically their empathy towards the cause of immigrants' rights, but it's more about a strategic stance on how we could build power as the electrical union.
Probably the most effective thing when talking to anybody, newly sworn in members, immigrants, people who've been there a long time, maybe are not have all the right ideas, but maybe their heart's there, maybe their heart's not there. All of it, people can tell when you're bullshitting them. So you have to use just experiences from people on the job, and it's real lucky when you've got like 250 people that you're seeing every day and that like you're learning about and are able to point to, because what anybody responds to is something that they can see for themselves. And that's the majority of like our day is like on this job site working with everybody else. So I take the experiences of learning what each person was making on their last non-union job, what they were doing, what they were working at. And if I'm talking to somebody who is a little bit wary about new members coming in, and maybe their heart's in the right place, maybe it's not. I'm still using like all these examples of they're running EMT, all through commercial buildings, all through like they're running Romex all through these apartments, just like we do, but for what less than 50% of what we make. And we know, like, it can get hard to cover a lot of the expenses, especially with precarity of construction work. You're going to have these booms and busts, and get laid off and have to go to different companies, and um, people already know from their own experience uh, how difficult that can be. So I always try and bring it back to what people were doing before they joined the union. Only 10%, 15%. I shouldn't even quote these numbers. I don't know them off the top of my head. But people who came up fully through the apprenticeship, IBEW's, like Joint Apprenticeship Training Center program, that's a very small percentage of our entire union. Most people come from non-union. And so most people know, a shitty non-union contractor that they've worked for. That's what I try and relate it back to. As far as getting like empowered members who can like fully participate in the life of the union, it's a struggle every month just getting people to go to a general meeting, unfortunately. But I try and like pass that information around, make some flyers, throw them around, try and get some topics that people are interested in coming. But even just of telling people you need to meet everyone else in our union. We got 2,300 members in our local currently. The next job, maybe we've got a good experience going on this job. But on the next one, that's going to be a whole new set of people. I mean, how about you go to this union meeting and you're meeting everybody first, and you start having these conversations. It's going to be a lot easier on the next one. That's really when our membership will drop off, when people get a reduction in force from one spot. They sit on the book, which is like our hiring hall. Maybe they'll be out of work a couple weeks, maybe they'll be out of work a day. And then they go to a new job with new expectations, different foreman, different scope of work. And I want them to be knowing the people that they're going to be seeing, hopefully for the rest of their career, by attending some of these like union meetings, events. We're having a carne asada cook-off coming up that we're planning. Stuff trying to get everyone and their families meeting up, learning each other, learning how they like I don't know, can see that the union is theirs. It's not just the hall. It's not just like leadership. It's not some abstract thing. It's literally everyone here saying, I will not work for less.
Yeah, and a question for either or both of you. I'm curious if you've heard members maybe bluntly say things like, I don't think we should talk about immigration at work because it's too political, or maybe they even explicitly bring up their support for ICE or say the union should stay out of it. Have you had to deal with conversations where this has directly come up with or from members in a way that you felt like you had to respond pretty directly?
Yeah, absolutely, and constantly, right? So the IBW historically was known as the good old boys club back in the day. So while other unions were bringing in people of color, the IBW was pretty much late on that train. A lot of people knew that the electrician trade was a white trade. There's still residue of that exists. There's still remnants of that exists with these kind of higher wage construction workers, where a lot of them happen to be conservatives or vote Republican. And obviously we know right now the mass misinformation that the right-wing media is giving them, they're regurgitating, and they feel like they're educated, and they go to the job sites after listening to a Rush Limbaugh podcast, per se, and they just want to let all that out. and combat whatever other conversations happening. But those conversations right there, I think there's so much misinformation. And I'll give an example. Our founder, Henry Miller, who's seen as like the guy, right? Everybody quotes Henry Miller, loves Henry Miller. He founded the IBEW. He had a really thick German accent. He was from a child of immigrant German parents, and English was his second language. And these are things that are not taught to us in our union. Um,
Mhm.
you know, uh, while we keep out immigrant workers from our local, either directly or indirectly, we're responsible for creating a second tier of workers. We're responsible when we keep them out. Uh,
Mhm.
we're weakening labor. We're weakening the labor movement by not really building our forces and being creative in how we bring everybody in. And Chris knows the first objective of the IBW, the first objective that we all know by heart, is to organize every electrical worker in the industry into local unions. There's no asterisk. There's no but. It's organize every electrical worker. So when our union was hungry in the 1890s, we were grabbing everybody, Polish, German, Irish, immigrants that didn't speak English, and we were building a powerful union. And we've become really selective over time. So while these guys on the job are trying to debate these things, it's always important for us to be armed with, I think, a strong response, which is consistently, we need to build a strong labor movement. We need to build a strong union. We're not responsible for the longshoremen's union or the Teamsters. We're responsible for the electrical industry. And right now in the United States, you well know we're 10% unionized, more or less, and compared to the 1950s and the 1970s. So we've become so selective that we're weakening ourselves. So as they start these debates on the job sites, they're really irrelevant because the common denominator here, whether you're a right winger or a left winger, and you're a union worker, is that you believe in power for your local, you believe in power for your union, so we can control the negotiating table, the bargaining table, and control the industry, so we could raise the standard of living for electrical workers, but all construction workers.
Absolutely. Thank you. Paco, you sort of touched on this a bit, but would love to hear more. We talked about how framing issues in union language is really important, not just like appeals to morality. Can you give an example of what that looks like in practice?
Something we've all seen, and it came out in the article, job sites are being raided. Job sites are being raided by ICE. For the most part, they hit non-union job sites because they know there's a lot of immigrant labor on those job sites, but they do hit union job sites as well. In LA County, a few months ago, they raided a job site. A gentleman ran from the job site into traffic, got hit by a truck, right, and died. Um, Other workers that fallen off scaffolds. So, you know, we would hope that our job sites would be somewhere safe to work. So, I think I brought up in the article also safety language. So, if me or Chris or anybody feels like we want to talk to the general contractor on the job site and come to an agreement for them to lock the gate so we work safely, we're not worried about that. Sometimes, using or relying on their empathy for immigrants' rights or for human rights isn't always the angle to take, because some of them just say, hey, I'm an all-American, I believe in law and order, so we bring up certain angles like safety. Hey brother, we should, we got yellow tape, we got red tape over that hole for a reason. Now if 10 guys come running in with guns and masks, you think I'm going to care that there's a piece of red tape right there? I'm running straight ahead. And we should all be safe to go work and build and be productive and make you your money and make our money and continue to build the country without being interrupted by these fascist raids. um so some of these conversations also, like I had mentioned just a second ago with some of the brothers, is if you believe in building a strong union, then we need to let all workers in, right? So there's it's not always the conversation that's directly about appealing to their sympathy or empathy for the families that are being torn apart or people getting beaten up on the street. It's about taking care of our union, with some of those guys, and you will run into people who you can play their heartstrings, and expose them to things that they're not seeing on their news outlet, and say, hey man, did you see what happened in Minneapolis? Did you see that someone got killed again, or et cetera, et cetera. But these conversations are necessary. And we don't work at Home Depot, or we're union workers, and our job sites are political. We should be political, and we should feel confident enough to be political on jobs. Even when someone tells us to shut up, we're not going to shut up. um, Unions are a political thing, and we need to step it up, or we're going to lose everything we've gained for the American worker.
Paco, something else you had talked about was how you use this approach not just with coworkers, but with general contractors. What has been effective in talking to contractors?
I kind of feel like I covered that a little bit in the last part, and I didn't want to be redundant. Um, but I feel like the union leadership has a lot of clout and with the contractors. But at this point in time, I don't know any specific local that's taken on this fight as their own to sit down with the contractors and take on that fight. So it falls on people like us to try to raise your hand at a safety meeting, or to try to even have access to the superintendent, because if you're not a general foreman on the job, then you're really you know uh, uh, just a grunt to them, right? You really have no say so in things. So um, I think our fight, or what I see as our fight, is pushing our local leadership and our local more than anything. They have access to hundreds of job sites across the country. They can sit down and negotiate with NICA and make sure that our contractors take a stand on these jobs. In LA alone, we have hundreds of job sites across the country, and Chris and myself, we're pretty much bound to one job site out of the hundreds. And sometimes we're on a small job site with 5 workers. Sometimes you're on a job site with 100 workers. But I think if we start making motions at our local meeting to push our leadership that got elected to represent us, not to rule over us, right, but to actually represent the workforce, then they should be the ones out there looking to pass legislation either in the city council or in their negotiations with NICA, which is the Electrical Contractors Association, to make sure that that their workers are safe. Right, the union's there to represent us. The union's there to make sure that we get what we deserve as workers and that we're safe and that we were able to go home in the same way we went to work. Now, if I say bye to my family because I have to go out there and make some money and I happen to get picked up by ICE mistakenly because I'm Latino or whatever it be, or whoever they're targeting next, it might be union members, right? So right now, this fight has to be had because they're not going to stop. Donald Trump on day one, he went after the gay community. He went after Latinos. He went after Somalians. He went after Ethiopians. I mean, when's it going to stop? At some point, they're going to call unions a threat to the country. They're going to say unions are slowing down the economic productivity of the country because we're forced to negotiate contracts. So unions are now illegal. We don't know where it's going to go. So the fight has to happen right now. We need to protect our job sites and feel like it's a place where we can go work, build, and go home safely.
Absolutely. And I think we've already seen some of that language about unions, especially at the federal level. And I think you're totally right that it's just going to keep coming for more and more of us. Chris, I'm curious about what has your experience been and what does this look like for you?
I can't say anything better than my brother Paco. I don't have many good examples on this front. Just that, I try and let everyone on my jobs that I know that, I'm available, and like I try and put myself out there. Just I don't know. I've got honestly no clue. But I believe Paco covered a lot of that. We have to be standing up for each other. I know it sounds very vague, but like it's also like you just don't know what all is happening and what all is gonna happen next. So we got to make those ties now. Yeah, sorry, lost a
Hey,
little
but you know
steam
what,
on
Chris?
that one. Yeah,
Let me insert this, brother.
yeah.
I'm in Los Angeles. Chris is in Richmond, Virginia. You would think that we would be more progressive in Los Angeles around the language issue. And I'll tell you right now, from my knowledge, and we have over 800 locals in the IBEW, Chris's local is spearheading. They're trailblazing the fight for language equity. I mean, these guys, they're giving people the oath to join the union in Spanish. They've translated their bylaws, their contract. I mean, Virginia of all places versus Los Angeles. So Chris is being humble right now, and I know he's a part of those internal fights in his local union. And I want to thank you, brother, for motivating us in LA to stand up and use your local as an example so that we could win the battles in LA, man. I just want to say thank you, Chris. Appreciate that, brother.
Hell yeah, Paco. Man, I was so excited to talk to you when I first got your contact information, man. I was like, holy shit, this is what we're doing. We've never done this. You guys have probably been doing it for years. And I don't know, to learn the different ways that we try shit that can be like helpful. We got like some real-time translation during our meetings going that I've been told is like not great. But they're
No.
trying for it. We'll get more people will get more organizers who are bilingual. Like it's just gonna come. We're gonna have more people up there who can like help translate um and being able to provide that information. I mean, really, it's just you don't realize how I didn't realize how much is just not there for people who are trying to look for it, and how much of a loss of time it can be when like you're trying to just do it yourself. So we can't. So we're reaching out to members in other locals, other jurisdictions, trying to get them like here's what worked for us. Here's what they really appreciate, sharing as many like resources as we can of different translations, like small things about like stuff that would be kind of difficult to explain to people outside of our union, like double booking. We got translations of like just little cards that people keep in their wallet now that explain like why you don't double book, like getting onto the hiring hall list of multiple logos, or like while you're still working. And yeah, all framing around like here's how we're building like solidarity. A lot of this stuff is very unofficial. A lot of things are difficult concepts that cannot be just auto translated through Google. We're having to reach out and find how to make the spirit of a lot of things come through. And we get that like when we've got dedicated brothers like Paco over there helping us out. I mean, really throughout this country, we've got an incredible network of people that are feeling the exact same thing, that we've got to be sharing this stuff, and we've got numbers. We've got the numbers. We don't all have much time, but together we got a few hours here and there, so we can get a lot done with that.
Thank you so much. I agree with Paco. I think you've been incredibly modest through this. So I want to hear more about what, like, take your victory lap. I want to hear more about what it's been like to like get your local at the forefront of like language equity in the IBEW. Like, what has it meant to get members on board? What's the process looked like to like get these resources available? Yeah, would love to hear more about the process.
The process involves I don't know how many hours extra time just putting in sifting through things, or trying to make duplicates of things, being organized on it, and having these things at the ready, having as much as you can at the ready with as many people on the job site that you can get to assist you with that. That is going to make it a lot easier. I don't know, in terms of like getting language parity. Honestly, you're just gonna have to find out who has like an hour of extra time to do it, and gotta make a list. You gotta make 1,000 lists, and you gotta update those lists every other day, about who can possibly help you out on this. And then you gotta be good at like delegating out that. You gotta find out like who has, I don't know, maybe even keep a list of like who's been able to like respond to something, get something done for you here and there, and like give them a little extra check mark in there, and be like, okay, yeah, they're my go-to now. Or someone else has like always has stuff with kids popping up, and it's like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to burden them, but I know that on this day big free. I don't what other stuff we got, Paco, like what have you like that
No. One thing that I really like that 666 does is the internal materials that Chris is talking about, right? It's not just about translating materials to hustle new members in. It's about the members that you have being empowered by knowing what the union's about. You can't defend a contract if you can't decipher the language code of a complex contract, right? So, once members are in, we want them to defend their contracts. We want them to understand what the union is really about, so they become active members. It's not about it being a top-down victorious battle. It's about the ranks in the union being the backbone of it. So, some of the stuff they do, like a live Spanish translation during their meetings, is huge. It's so revolutionary, and it's so simple at the same time within something like the IBEW, right? It's like it needs to be done. So to think that Richmond, Virginia, of all places, and I've never been there, but I think it's the South, right? Is it the South? But I mean,
Yeah.
versus somewhere like California, you would think that we would be leading that, but I just think things like that, empowering your membership is important. We shouldn't just be a glorified job agency for contractors. We need to be a trade union. We need our members to really stand up and be freedom fighters for the working class.
Mhm. Yeah.
So thank you, brother.
Thank you. And like, I don't make it think that I'm like doing all this. I'm delegating all that. I'm just on a job with like 10% of our union. So I'm able to like find out. Okay, this person is having a lot of trouble with this. And, second person came up, exact same problem. I need to send this. And people in the hall have been doing good work too. In our hall, like they've been translating, getting that CBA done. Was I mean just fucking game changing. And then I'm able to be like, okay, how many people understand this concept? I don't want to take too much credit because it's been so much work from so many people. And I'm just able to say that hey, this part sounds like it's messing people up.
So, this is not just limited to the trades, but there are some members, I think, in many workplaces who are reluctant to allow in too many members to join a union because then if the work dries up, you've got, say, 1,000 members competing for 300 jobs, right? How do you approach these concerns when it comes to immigrant workers in particular, who are often kind of singled out as like competition? Chris, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. Well, uh, our typical way that the electricians inside wiremen will secure work when work dries up in their own jurisdiction is go travel. Go to another jurisdiction that has work and like that they need to fill, because that's all this is. It's being able to fill a job. If a contractor can't fill a job, they're probably not going to get another contract at that job site again. Like if they literally don't have the manpower to do it. So everything that we do is it's about manpower, like not just numbers, but like active participants, but also skilled people. So we are having people like get on to different like tiers of skills and go out like to different neighboring jurisdictions, sometimes far away jurisdictions, to get work when work dries up. That's our typical way. That's what like a lot of brothers will like say that you got to do. And then like if you aren't or trained up enough, you're probably going to get spun from that job. Or if you only speak Spanish, they might just spin you from that job, and like then you got to travel to another jurisdiction, find work, and that entire thing is you being away from your family and like you not having a job. It's pretty brutal. I haven't had to experience in that yet. I'm pretty new J-Dub, and work's been good around here. But that's something that everyone like is always very cautious about. But that leaves out a huge gap of potential, which is all the non-union work that is happening in our jurisdiction. Typical way that in the past was utilized was salting a non-union contractor. And that's where I think that a lot of when I'm talking to people about them worried that we're securing work, or that we're going to have too many people on job, and that they're going to not have job security because they're going to have to wait in a long list to get back onto a job site. I'm saying we have not utilized the full potential of our salting program. We have not. That's something also that we do not have good like translations of, and like synopses of, like how you will go to like apply for a non-union job and work to explain the union to people who are there, and find like people who are like really interested in the electrical trade and like want to pursue it, and convince them that they should be making more, and that they can do that through having a union. So I would like to see that better utilized, and I think that this is like incredible opportunity that we have with an influx of new people, from different communities that IBEW has not reached out to before. Like we cannot neglect bringing in new people. Like we can't just only go to the union job sites in our jurisdiction and other jurisdictions, when work dries up, we have to secure it wherever we are. We have to really spread why the benefits of joining a union are here for those who want it, those who are willing to fight for it.
Absolutely. Paco, how about you? How do you respond to fears that if you organize immigrant workers, there won't be enough work to go around?
Well, that wording right there, the fear of organizing immigrant workers. And I think Chris agrees with this right here. Ultimately, if we have 100% of electrical workers in the union, that's where we want to be, and that's where we're going to really set the standard for the industry. And I think that goes for any industry, a closed shop of teachers in a school district, or the ports. If the longshoremen control the ports, or every truck driver in the country is a teamster, the union has real power. So ultimately, that's where we want to be. Now, if we're going to marginalize what workers we allow in or not, that's ultimately going to hurt the union. It is hurting the union right now, right? So we need to organize everybody who's bending pipe, who's pulling wire, everybody who's any worker who's on a power pole needs to be IBEW, period. But Chris came up with a lot of suggestions on how we can deal with sometimes work slowing down. But also the leadership that we vote for in our local unions, it's their job to be organizing aggressively. They need to organize new companies. They need to organize new work. We've abandoned certain industries like residential electricity, right? That's something that you guys might not know. The IBEW has a very low percentage of residential electricity. So when you see those huge apartment complexes going up in your neighborhood, odds are they're non-union. So we really need to find ways to be creative, and we need the people that we vote for who are making a lot of money, to really become aggressive organizers and thoroughly organize the industry. But we cannot stop organizing workers. Now, historically, for example, in 1986, when the amnesty bill was passed, those are the workers that helped save this country. And there was a reason that it passed. There was a reason that Reagan passed that bill, because those workers were needed for industry to succeed. We can't forget history. We can't forget who built the railroads, right? And I think that's the thing about critical race theory and why the Trump administration wants to eliminate it. So we don't understand how this country was built. The Haymarket incident in Chicago, those were immigrant workers that organized that fight. We've always been in the forefront of the fight, immigrant workers. Why would we stop today? Why would we now look at these workers as if they're the problem? We've always been the solution, and we've always been the scapegoat. And that's the thing, right? I'm born here, but I was raised by immigrants, so I understand how hardworking immigrants are in general from any country in the world. You come here, you're proud, you work hard. It's something we just can't do, period. And we have to talk to our brothers about ultimately reaching our goal, which is controlling this industry, right? And we'll find ways to do it, like salting non-union. We'll do what we have to do when the work dries up, but we cannot shut our door to not one person who's doing our work. That can't happen. That's going to be detrimental not only to our union, but to the labor movement in general.
And I'm curious, Chris, what are some other kinds of myths or misconceptions about immigrant workers that come up when you're having conversations with other people, and how do you respond to them?
I guess misconception, skills, like people they don't care, they're not gonna be around, or they don't care about like seeing their family who live here. They'll just go across the country to go work and then come back 6 months later. No, people don't want that. Like I think intrinsically people know that nobody wants that. That's a brutal way to live. I will just use examples of people having committed to being in the union, paying like a year's amount of dues, after just joining for a few months. I'm like, they're here. Like, they want to be here. They want these conditions. They believe in this now. That's how I'm able to convince stuff. That plus like all the extra skills training people are doing. Like this is how we create loyalty. Yeah, I don't know. I guess the biggest myths and misconceptions I get is that nobody's trying, everyone's too out for the dollar, and they're only here because we've got the work now. And I truly don't believe that I've seen too many people who are fully committed to this that I can point to that
As you said on our call, providing my favorite line in the piece, I've seen a lot of dumbasses, but you'll see dumbass electricians of every nationality. And I think that was an excellent point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really fucking true. But I love them. But they're great.
Yeah, Paco, any other myths or misconceptions you might flag?
Yeah, one of the biggest ones that people talk about is safety. They're like, if people can't speak the language, then it's going to be unsafe. It's this ridiculous myth that is can't be farther from the truth. I mean, I'll give you an example. In the state of California gives the state general electricians exam in Spanish, right? For a reason. They understand who's doing the work, and they want people to be certified and to be doing it legally, because the union has passed legislation that only certified workers can do certain types of work. We pushed the envelope on that. So if unions are playing catch up with legislators, I think that's a shame. I think we should be the ones trailblazing progressive legislation that allows all workers to be able to work. Unions should be in the forefront of that. I say to those people who talk about it being a safety issue, then translate things. You want the work to get done, translate things, man. Work with people. I mean, I live in a city called Los Angeles. The legal name of the city I live in is El Pueblo de Nuestra Señora la Reina de Los Ángeles de Porciúncula. That's the name of, and we just do this now, LA. But that's the name of the city we live in. We can't deny that we're surrounded by other languages, and it's a beautiful thing. A monolingual society is I think, borderline an immigrant society. To be bilingual is an amazing thing. So why not go even farther with it? So those are some of the misnomers. But like Chris said, as far as people's commitment, I would like to kind of counter that. One of the most, I think, the most powerful union fights that we saw in LA was in 1992, was the Justice for Janitors fight, right? And in LA, the majority of the janitors are immigrants, especially Latinos. And these people fought in the street, and they were making minimum wage with no benefits, and they got beat up by the cops, and they fought and they fought and they fought until they won. These people are dedicated to the unions. European workers that migrate here, they understand unions. It's a part of, it came from over there, right? Latino workers that come from Latin America understand politics and what it means to fight for your rights. If these people left their hometown and their country and their families, and they took this dangerous trek to get here, to question their loyalties, to question their ability to fight for something that's amazing. So in my experience, immigrant workers are usually the ones you'll see at union meetings consistently, right? Alongside with everyone else, but I know these people are there. So some of these myths, I think, are just scare tactics and ignorance, and people just regurgitating something they heard from somebody, but they're not based in, truth.
Thank you both so much for being here. Last question for you both. Do you have any advice for people who want to do this work to transform their own unions into institutions that fight for immigrant members and the community as a whole?
Yeah. Pick something, get your four dumbest friends in the union together, and fucking get in the ditch. Just you're gonna have to fight it out. You're gonna have to do it, put in some extra work. Um and it's worth it. It's the best thing I've ever done. I can't recommend it enough. Love all my brothers and sisters in Lyra and crew. Like, the work that they're putting in. I can't say enough. Other than yeah, no. If you're interested in joining the trade, yeah, come in the ditch. There's room.
I think if not now, when? I think the world is showing us right now, when we're looking at what's happening in Palestine, and we're looking at what's happening in Minneapolis, and we're looking at what's happening all over the world and in this country. There's a fight to be had right now, and stand on the right side of history. Don't look back at 2026 and ask yourself what you did back then, or if your kids grow up and say, "Hey, Dad, what were you doing in 2026 when all that fascist wave was all across the country?" I don't want to say I was sitting at home watching reruns of Dawson's Creek, for God's sake. I want to say I was out there in the streets fighting. But I want to say that we're very blessed to be able to fight the social justice movement within the conditions that we're in. With a great career, I get to sleep on my IKEA pillow at night. And if my extent of fighting for social justice is having the courage to go to a union meeting and look the leadership in the eye and push and try to use the union's rules to pass things that are progressive for our membership and for the growth of our union, then I'll take on that fight any day. I'm not out there dodging bullets like they are in Palestine. So I tell our union members, be courageous. This is the time right now, brothers and sisters, and you're not alone. It's happening across the country. And we're starting to communicate with each other. Years ago, people like myself and Chris, we'd have had a hard time being in touch, but thank God for LAEWA and the crew organization that now we have a network to be able to share information and get motivated and say, man, I didn't know that was happening over there. I got to do that over here. So get in touch with people in your union. Join any effort in your union if it's positive. If it's not perfect, that's fine. Join it and make it better. Don't make it an excuse not to join because you don't like the way it runs or something. Fucking get involved, man. This is the time right now for us to stand up and fight for people. And if we have to fight like hell to get our union to fight, then that's going to be our fight. And that's a safe fight. So have no fear. We're here with you guys. Get in touch with us too. We're your brothers and sisters, man. We'll fight with you, you know?
Hell yeah. Thank you both so much for being here. That's our episode. Please rate us or leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. If you're listening to us on Podbean at labornotespodcast.podbean.com, download our episode.
Coming up, we have a Running for Union office training on Monday, February 23rd at 8 p.m. Eastern. Our next Secrets of a Successful Organizer series will also be in March on Wednesdays, March 4th, 11th, and 18th. And we have our next Stewards Workshop on the topic of investigating grievances on Monday, March 16th. Also, our next session of What to Do When Your Union Breaks Your Heart is on Tuesday, March 17th. You can sign up for all of those at labornotes.org/events.
The Labor Notes podcast is produced by Danielle Smith, Sindhu Sundar, and myself. Our title music was written and performed by our coworker, Keith Brower Brown. See you next week. Solidarity, y'all.